ever get that feeling? Like you're rereading something you thought you knew, and bam, suddenly there's this whole other layer you never noticed before.
Happens to me all the time, especially with books I love. You'd think I'd have it memorized by then, but nope. Always something new.
Right. That's kind of how I felt with this book we're diving into, the pillars of the gospel. Like the gospel, right? We talk about it, we sing about it, but this was different.
It's easy to just go through the motions,
Yeah.
especially with familiar ideas. We think, oh, yeah, I got that, and then we move on.
Exactly. But this book, it really digs into the core message of the gospel in a way I'd never really considered. And I'm excited, honestly, to kind of unpack some of that with you today.
I'm ready. Those aha moments, they're the best. When you realize there's always more to learn, even about things you thought you knew by heart.
Totally. And one of the things this book does so well is it lays out this really simple, memorable framework. They call it SCORE. So each letter in SCORE, it's like a key aspect, a pillar of the gospel message.
What do you think? Should we dive right in?
Let's go for it.
All right, so S, the first one, stands for scriptures, which, okay, at first glance might seem kind of obvious, right? Like, duh, Bible, gospel makes sense.
Sure. But we're not just talking about, like, a history book here, not just dates and names and all that.
Right. There's got to be more to it than that. So it's not just like the stories themselves. It's
the foundation. Like the scriptures, they reveal God's whole plan, this big overarching story, and it all leads to this moment, the gospel. This wasn't like a random Tuesday kind of thing. Centuries. We're talking centuries of prophecy, build up, the whole bit. Wow. So it's like the ultimate backstory, sets the stage for everything else.
Exactly.
Okay. So we got S for scriptures. Makes sense. Then we move on to C, which is for Christ. And I gotta admit, like, I've heard that word so many times, but I don't know if I ever really, truly, like, connected with the meaning.
That's huge, though, right? Because Christ, it's not just Jesus' last name.
Yeah.
Like John Smith, Jesus Christ. No, Christ. It means Anointed One, the Messiah.
Right, like the chosen one, right? The one who was promised.
Yes. And in the Old Testament, that title, Messiah, who is it used for? Kings. So when we say Jesus Christ, we're actually saying Jesus the King.
Whoa, okay. So it's not just about, like, he was a wise teacher, said some nice things. It's about authority. It's about power.
It changes everything. Understanding Jesus as King, it reframes his entire mission.
Okay, yeah. Wow. Already my mind is like, whoa. All right, so we got the foundation, the scriptures. We've got the King, Christ himself. What's next in this SCORE thing?
Oh, for Obituary.
Obituary. Okay. That took a turn.
It's kind of jarring, right? But the book, it makes this point, and it's so important. We can't shy away from the reality of Christ's death.
I can see that. Obituary, it's not exactly a feel-good word.
We breeze past it sometimes. But the crucifixion, that's the heart of it, the sacrifice. Jesus, he willingly took that on himself, the weight of that.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to comprehend.
Yeah, no, you're right. It makes you think, for sure. All right, so we went from scriptures to Christ the King to, well, the obituary, heavy stuff. What comes after that?
Well, this is where we see the hope, the core of the gospel message. R for resurrection, victory over death, the promise of new life. We'll get into that.
Resurrection. Okay, yeah, now we're talking. That's the good stuff. So if O for obituary, that was the downer, R for resurrection, that's where we start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Right?
Absolutely. But there's one more piece, the E in SCORE, and this one, it's often missed.
Oh, okay. Hit me with it. What's E?
Enthronement.
Enthronement. I don't think I've heard that one before.
It's huge E, though. See, it's not just that Jesus, died and then rose again. It's that he didn't just, ascend to heaven and then wait around, twiddling his thumbs till, a second coming or something.
Right. So it's not just about waiting around for something in the future. So what's it about then?
He's reigning right now, actively. That's the enthronement. It's already happening.
Whoa, okay. So it's less about some far-off future event and more about...
the here and now. And that changes everything. It's not about earning our way to heaven later. It's about living as citizens of his kingdom right now, today.
Whoa, okay. Now that you mention it, it's like that whole living in the now and not yet thing, which I gotta be honest, always sounded a bit abstract to me. Like, how do you actually do that?
Right. It's a tension, for sure. We're in the now, but we're also living for the not yet. But this book, it really drives home this point, recognizing that Jesus is reigning right now. Game changer.
So instead of saying one day, It's day one.
I love that. Day one. And the book, it uses this powerful example from Philippians. It says, every knee will bow before Jesus, not might, not maybe someday,
Yeah.
will.
No arguing with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why wait? Why not live in that reality now?
Man, that makes me think about that line in the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. But like, if Jesus is already enthroned, right, reigning up there, what does it actually look like to bring that down here to earth?
Yeah, it's more than just words, isn't it?
Right. So it's like, what would change if we really truly acted like we were already living in that kingdom, a kingdom of love, compassion, justice?
There it is. That's the question. That's where the rubber meets the road with this whole enthronement thing.
Okay, but how do we do that? Like, take this huge concept, Jesus' kingdom, and actually, I don't know, live it in our normal, messy lives?
Yeah,
It's kind of overwhelming, right?
It's definitely not about, like, adding more to our to-do list. Like, okay, pray this, read that, then go do this other thing for Jesus.
Right, right. It's not about, like, earning brownie points or something.
Exactly. It's a heart change first, and then, yeah, then it spills out into everything.
Okay, so less about checking boxes, more about letting those values, love, compassion, justice, letting that guide our choices.
Yes. Think about it. How different would we treat each other? How would we, I don't know, handle conflict, even just how we use our money, our time, if we truly, deep down, saw ourselves as citizens of that kingdom?
Whoa, yeah. It's like we'd be, I don't know, mini ambassadors or something, bringing those values into every situation.
Love that. Many ambassadors. And not hiding away, right? Not just like hunkering down, waiting for heaven, but being a force for good, for healing, right here, right now.
Which, let's be real, is way harder than it sounds.
Right.
So how do we bridge that gap between like the ideal and the, the reality of living in a world that, well, it doesn't exactly operate on kingdom principles all the time?
Small steps. It starts with the everyday stuff, making choices that line up with those values, even when it's tough. Maybe it's, I don't know, being ridiculously generous when you really can't afford it, or speaking up when you see injustice, even if it's uncomfortable, or offering grace in a relationship when, honestly, you just want to walk away.
So it's like taking those kingdom values and, I don't know, weaving them into the fabric of our lives, like one choice, one interaction at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I find so, I don't know, compelling about this whole now and not yet thing.
Yeah.
It's not about pretending the world isn't messed up or that we have it all figured out. It's about living in that tension, really knowing that Christ is king right now, but also that there's this fullness, this completion that's still coming.
So we're holding both, right? The already and the not yet, living out the reality of his kingdom here, but also, eagerly waiting for
his return.
Exactly.
And I think that's a good place to leave our listeners today with a final thought to chew on. If Jesus is enthroned, if he is reigning right now, how does that change how you pray for his kingdom to come?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. It's not just wishing for a better future. It's like, then they're partnering with the king to make it happen.
Exactly.
Which, intimidating for sure. But also, man, what an amazing, hopeful calling. So, listener, as you're going through your week, keep that question in mind. What does it look like for you to live as a citizen of Christ's kingdom today?